1962. Operation Chamois. Charles de Gaulle was shot at on the footsteps of the Élysée Palace by a rifleman located on the first story of 86, Rue du Faubourg Street Honor. This was followed 2 days later, on May 25, by another attempt at the Pausettes, near Argenton-sur-Creuse, at which explosives were discovered before the passing of the presidential train. The assassination attempt of August 22, 1962 is probably the most spectacular of all. The attempt, known as the Petit Clamart, involved a commando of 14 members of the OAS, including Lieutenant Louis de Condé, who has been a member of the Central Committee of the Front National, secretary of the party in the Alliés, and a legislative candidate for Vichy. Dilwar wrote, at the Petit Clamart, Alain Beaugrenat de la Tocquenay was hiding inside of a Citroën D19, acting as a second wave. The author of Comment Général pas Tuesday de Gaulle was also inserted into the Front National, said his son, even if he might not be up to date in his dues. The son, Thibault de la Tocquenay, was municipal councillor for the FN in Avignon. Today, as a member of the political bureau of the Le Penist Party and national delegate for studies and argumentations, Thibault de la Tocquenay remembers that Le Pen went to pray on the tomb of Jean-Marie Bastien-Thiry. Bastien-Thiry was the chief military engineer of the Petit Clamart Commando. He was executed in March of 1963 at Fort Ivory. Dilwar further noted that Jean-Marie Le Pen was at the Mutuality meeting of the OAS on November 16, 1961, when the crowd was clamoring OAS, OAS. Le Pen took the floor and stated, starting tonight, the struggle has begun. The declaration of war against de Gaulle has been declared. On February 15, 1963, the plot of the École Militaire was the attempt that inspired the book of Frederick Forsyth, Chacal. Georges Vallon, 1923–1994, who escaped to Switzerland and took refuge in Paraguay, made the assassination attempt. He was sentenced to death in absentia. The above 6 attempts against the life of President de Gaulle are also reported in Quid 04. Maxime Brunieri, who shot at President Jacques Chirac with a .22 caliber rifle at the Champs-Élysées, on July 14, 2002, had been a candidate for the 18th arrondissement of Paris. During the municipal election of 2001, he had the 7th position on the MNR list of candidates of Bruno Maigret. Brunieri was also tied to the lawyer of the German NDP neo-Nazi group, Horst Mahler, formerly a member of the Baader-Meinhof gang. In an homage to the old SS of the Charlemagne division, Mahler and Brunieri celebrated together the summer solstice of 2002 at Montségur, Ariège, the old fortress of the Templars, a favorite spot of the Martinists. All of the above represent essentially the French terrorist deployment capabilities of the Synarchy International at the street level, worldwide. These are the arms and legs of individuals who are sympathetic to the Duke of Orleans, today known as Henry, Comte de Paris, and official pretender to the Bourbon throne of France. The 3 levels of the Synarchy International secret societies are here represented. At the highest level, there is the Duke of Orleans, who is the leading French royalist high priest of the cult of GAIA, and who is also a candidate for the European election of 2004, and, in reality, the up-and-coming new beastman of France. As theoreticians of the Synarchy, Jean Thériault and Luc Michel, represent the intermediate level. The lower level is represented by the likes of Bernard Antony and Bruno Maigret, including the sewage level represented by Christian Bouchet and his crawling perverts. As ugly as this potential terrorism represents, for our own organization as well as for our allies, it is the bond that holds them together, which is the real menace. The real danger in French society, and this is also the element that prevents this people from making real progress, is that it has been made socially acceptable by tradition, and legally acceptable by social contract, that the leader of the nation can be removed by abduction, or even by way of assassination, when he is considered to be a tyrant by a certain class of fanatical people. For them, any idea of giving up Algeria represented treason. Consequently, it is socially acceptable to have assassins walking the streets of French cities with their heads high, and flaunt the truth. This is a stupid tradition, which goes back at least to the assassination of Henry IV, and as far back as the Crusades. This is the type of romantic sophistry that was made to prevail throughout the trial of Jean Bastien-Thiry and Alain de la Tocquenay, in February of 1963. For example, just listen to the tone of arrogance when La Tocquenay declared in court, "I know that a certain way to hold your head is not diplomatic, but my family, which has given France crusaders, Chouans royalist insurgents, and officers, has never bowed down in the face of what its conscience considered perjury, felony or dishonor, and I have the right to listen to my ancestors who always have defended holy causes. This is precisely the right of being stupid that must be ridiculed to high heavens, in the courts and the streets of France. The issue here is not a legal matter, nor even a French matter, it is simply a human matter. As long as such fallacy of composition is made to be socially accepted in any society, the truth will never have its day in France, and France will never have a positive role to play in the world at large. This is the more profound and significant terrorist danger represented by the Le Pen phenomenon today, that is, blackmail disguised into oligarchical honor. If this kind of insanity is not derided publicly, if this trash is not ridiculed everywhere for the stupidity that it represents, then the beast-man of Bonaparte, or of Laval, will rear its ugly head, again, in the animalistic form of the Duke of Orleans, this time. If this dirty piece of oligarchical garbage cannot be extirpated entirely from the soil of France, at least the truth about its real bestial nature can keep it in check and prevent it from dominating. Let the truth prevail over false honor. 6.2 Blaspinner's friends in France. What we have here is a glimpse of the current synarchist assassination and brainwashing capabilities in France. Lawfully, it is the continuation of the Martinist cult and the assassination capability known as Organisation de l'Armée Secrète OAS. This is written for the purpose of providing some investigative leads into current operations targeting the La Rouche movement. Thibaut de Beaugrenat de la Tocquenay represented France at the Phalange celebration in Madrid that Blaspinner had organized on November 16, 2002. La Tocquenay is co-founder and co-director of Chrétien Solidarite, which is the political arm of the Centre Henri et André Charlier, founded by Bertrand Antony and modeled on Charles Maurras's ideas. Chrétien Solidarite furnishes aid including paratroopers, to armed Christian movements and to anti-communist movements in places like Croatia, Nicaragua, Poland, Indochina and Lebanon. Chrétien Solidarite, Centre Henri et André Charlier, Comite Clovis and a series of magazines and newspapers, such as Present, Reconquête, Minute, Itinéraires, all founded by Bernard Antony, are all committed to fighting genocide against France and the French, that means, against immigration and against Islam. Chrétien Solidarite's motto is, that France, that Christianity continue, against communism that massacres, facing the outbreak of Muslims, facing the subversion of totalitarian cosmopolitanism. After Marcel Lefebvre was kicked out of the Catholic Church, Chrétien Solidarite was careful to insist on its fidelity to the Pope. However, they are still listed on the Street Pius X website of Lefebvre. Thibaut Beaugrenat de la Tocquenay is today an elected regional member of Le Pen's party, the Front National. He is a businessman in southern France, in Provence, Director General since 1995, of Apagia Segelm, a company that specializes in geotechnical material. La Tocquenay's father, Alain Beaugrenat de la Tocquenay, was a member of the Organisation de l'Armée Secrète OAS and collaborator of Jean-Bastien Thierry in the attempted assassination of General Charles de Gaulle on August 22, 1962 in Petit-Clamart. He was sentenced to death along with Bastien Thierry and Marcel Prévost. De Gaulle commuted Prévost's and La Tocquenay's death sentence to life imprisonment, but Bastien Thierry was executed March 11, 1963. Thibaut de la Tocquenay, who was born in Algiers, apparently followed in his father's footsteps. He fought as a mercenary in Croatia, with the Contras in Nicaragua, and with Falangist Jejia in Lebanon. Reportedly, Chrétien Solidarite has the support of many bishops in the Curia in Rome. It is in the tradition of the Solidarists of the 1970s. In 1997, and likely still today, Chrétien Solidarite had networks around the world. 1. France-Lebanon was headed up by Jean Canicus and Catherine Renault. It was founded with the collaboration of Philippe Malade, CNI, and Guy Gourmer RPR. It supports the Maronite militia. In the 1970s, Thibaut de la Tocquenay, Jacques Arnauld, and Francis Bergeron fought on the side of the Phalange of Samir Jejia in Lebanon. Réseau Voltaire says that these links continue. The Phalange is regularly invited to participate in Days of Amity Française and inversely. Chrétien Solidarite sends emissaries to Lebanon. For instance, Olivier d'Ormesson in 1986. Samir Jejia's lawyers were Biaggi, Saint-Just and Patrimonio. of Agence Générale contre le racisme et pour le respect de l'identité française et chrétienne, a GRIF, a sort of ADL of the right wing, also set up by Bernard Antony. Jean-Baptiste Biaggi is president of honor of the Clovis Committee, also founded by Bernard Antony. He is former deputy in Paris, regional councillor for Corsica, and former officer of Commandos of France. Biaggi is an old comrade of Soustelle. Some have even suggested that he was somewhat of a controller of Soustelle. Was member of the RAF Rassemblement pour l'Algérie française. 2. Chrétien Solidarité Pays de l'Eastern Standard Time was headed up by Jean-Michel Rudant, who led groups in Poland, Lithuania, and Estonia. But, says Réseau Voltaire, like the Front National, they have never been able to get a foothold in Russia. 3. Croatia Solidarity, headed up by Christoph Buchan, editor of El Epervier, organized convoys to Slavonski Brod where they run an orphanage. But, undercover, Chrétien Solidarite supplied fighters to the Croatian Defense Force Hrvatsko Oružane Snage, HOS, to fight against the Serbo-Bolsheviks. 4. Chrétien Solidarite Central America, directed by Thibaut de Beaugrenat de la Tocne, supported the ultras of the Contra Antisandinistas and is said to be linked closely to the government O5F. ETLHCILNVAD Orn. Asia section, under the direction of Alan Sanders, supports the Karen's Catholic national minority in Burma, supplying them with military uniforms.